The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star.
Well, it is Wednesday, so normally you don't get to hear from us till Thursday, but we gave you a special early week treat. You get to hear from us on a Wednesday mid-morning as opposed to our normal Thursday time. We've got a busy week here at the Star, so we are trying to get ahead of things here on Girls Talk, Boys Talk. Kaylee Sutton, Jess Navarez, and Aisha Morrison with you on this fabulous Wednesday. Ladies, I got to be honest, it's kind of hard to focus on football when there's like 100 bajillion things going on, like in the district, and of course the Cowboys getting ready to play host to the ACMs tomorrow. Red carpet starts at 3, so pretty much around that time we will forget about football and think about country music tomorrow, but that's tomorrow. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the rookies. There's a lot of guys who are on this list I think can be both sleepers and also be immediate impact players, so we are going to dive right into that. Obviously, rookie minicamp gets underway starting on Friday, and then they will be practicing throughout the weekend. We get the opportunity to chat with them on Monday, it feels like Monday, on Friday and Saturday before the media availability goes away. But let's dive into this rookie class. You've got quite a few drafted players and then quite a few more undrafted players. Let's talk about the draftees first. When you look at the list of guys, and I know we touched on this a little bit last week, but when you look at some of these players, who are some guys you think can kind of slide in and not only be impact players, but are needed to be impact players pretty early on?
Go ahead, girl. All you. All you.
Well, I mean, from the DT position, I think the loss of Hankins is important. Not Hankins, of Watkins rather, is important here. And so Mozzie, I think, for a fact, like, Cowboys don't play about their draft picks typically. They give them a fair shot to prove that they can make the team. Demarion Overshone is another gentleman that I think, especially given that Micah was like, hey, man, say, man, I'm a DA out here in these streets. I believe that his position and being a linebacker is going to be important. Junior Fajoko at that DT position, DN position, I think that he's a guy that is going to be able to – I don't think he has any competition. I don't. I think that he can come in and be somebody that can impact. I wrote it down. Because we were talking about it. But Asim Richards, I'm not 100% sure, but I do feel like he's a guy that maybe they are looking to progress and build into something. But really, Deuce Vaughn, again, is a guy I think is going to come in and be – they're going to find a way to get him involved. He's such a versatile player, so many different things he can do. So I think at least 4 or 5 guys at least four guys on this out of the draft are going to be gentlemen that you hope can come in and make a difference on this squad kind of early on.
Yeah, and I'm looking at really that tight end room and not necessarily Luke Schoonmaker as a player, but the tight end room as a whole and what his addition really will bring. And more than that, how Mike McCarthy is going to really utilize them when he's calling the plays, just how creative he can be with that play calling. Obviously, Mozzie's he's the obvious, right? I mean, we're going to see what Mozzie can do. I'm really excited to see him grow under Dan Quinn more than anything else, and I'm excited to see, when we're talking about the offensive side of the ball, Deuce Vaughn, because yes, Tony Pollard, he is that guy now. He is your running back one, but I'm interested to see if, Mike McCarthy kind of keeps, and Brian Schottenheimer, if they decide to keep that 1-2 punch going, or if they kind of give Tony more of the workload and then they have, Deuce or somebody else really come in and like Rico or Malik come in and try to alleviate that. I'm interested to see the battle for running back too. Is what I'm interested to see.
Yeah, that's interesting too, especially when you've got a Ronald Jones who we really don't know what he's capable of in that running back spot too. I love that you brought up Schoonmaker.
Yes.
I have been waiting to talk about this tweet, y'all, for a week now, but we just haven't had the opportunity. So for those of you who don't know, Douglas Barraclough, I've actually never said his last name before. But
that's a cool last name. I like it.
Yeah, I've never actually said his last name, but he does so much of our behind-the-scenes stuff. I do a lot of radio. Anytime we do radio hits with him, we go in his office. He clips a lot of stuff from our podcast. And for those of you who don't know, he's a sneaky, kind of petty tweeter sometimes.
A little bit.
A little petty, a little funny.
Love it.
I've been sitting on this tweet for a week now. He tweeted out last week when talking about Schoonmaker, and I'm going to read this verbatim. Schoonmaker is of Dutch origin, according to Googling, meaning clean maker. In modern Dutch, it means janitor. Stay with me. Let's say Luke Schoonmaker isn't afraid to do the dirty work in the trenches, but he'll also run clean through the secondary on his way to the end zone.
Oh,
It's a bar.
okay.
Literally.
Oh my gosh.
It's a bar.
Yeah,
I didn't
saw
expect that. That was nice.
And I know that we had this conversation last week about how, some people within the fan base aren't super excited about this pick. But I really think that the Cowboys, when they went into this draft, like the theme has been versatility for I don't know how long. But when you look at this draft, it's so reflective of that. You look at a guy, Luke Schoonmaker, who used to be a quarterback. He talked about it whenever he was in that pregame or his post-drafting press conference with us on the conference call. He talked about his experience with the quarterbacks and being able to understand reads better and understand his role better because of that quarterback position experience. You've also got DeMarvion Overshown, who used to play corner and now he's a linebacker, but he has, Dono-esque capabilities. You've got an Awesome Richards. Is that how we're saying it, Jazzy? Awesome.
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 Yeah, awesome.
Awesome
Barnacles.
Richards.
Which is so great for the puns that I'm going to be putting out all season, guys.
But this is a guy who, he plays offensive line. He's currently listed as an offensive tackle, but he's a former tight end. He also used to play defensive end. So a lot of these guys on the roster, or in this draft class, I should say, are all guys that bring a little bit of versatility. And I think that that's super important when you look at how this roster kind of shaped out, because I know it's easy to nitpick and go through and say, the roster needed this, the roster needed that. But when you look at it from a grand scheme of things, it really didn't need that much, right?
Yeah.
Last year's team wasn't bad. Last year's roster wasn't bad. You always can get better. You always want to build. But I think when you look at this draft class, there's some really good pieces in there that I think can make a really good roster even better.
Oh, yeah. And thank you for mentioning Schoon. I can't believe I missed him when I was talking about the players that could come in and be impact players. But Lunda Wells came on the show, and he mentioned that on the draft show, and he mentioned that was an important part of why they even, decided to go with Schoon, is the fact that he played in a pro level offense. And so I do expect him to be a guy that they feel like they can plug and play in some areas, especially in the blocking department in the run game. So absolutely.
And what I really like too is, so you're talking about, retaining guys. We talk about that a lot. Of that was a very important part of the offseason, was retaining the guys that stayed. But one that the front office brings up a lot is Dalton Schultz. And so when I was looking at Schoon and I was looking at Dalton, they're two completely different kind of players here. However, they're around the same size. And for some reason, Schoon just looks bigger when he's playing. And it's because he uses his length to his advantage here. So I'm excited to see. He's, again, the theme of this draft class, versatility. I like any player that can come in and that is willing to not only perfect what they're good at already, but really start perfecting other areas that they can improve in, but become even more versatile. So I'm excited to see just this tight end group in general. I felt like we're a little bit in a cage last season, and then you're about to open the cage and let the dogs out. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see it.
Tight end room is it's a lot going on, because when we start talking about the undrafted free agents, baby, it's a lot of gentlemen in that tight end room all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, it'll be a packed room for sure. Let's talk about, though, maybe some of the guys on this draft list who we're not maybe giving enough attention to. And Aisha, I kind of want to put your scouting hat on for a little bit. Two guys on this list, I think that were I'm going to use question marks for a lack of better term. Not that they are question marks, but I think they were interesting picks in terms of where they came and how they came to be. Starting with the round 6 pick 178, Eric Scott, a cornerback out of Southern Miss. Now, this is not a guy who lacks skill. He had a tremendous senior season at Southern Miss. 2 when I was looking at his stats, it was confusing because it showed offensive stats first, and I was like, this is a DB. Why are we looking at his offensive stats? But he has 2 interceptions, both of which were returned for touchdowns. And so I love that that's the first information that you see. Like, okay, this is a ball hawk, and when he gets the ball, he's going to do something with it. So I love that. He's not afraid to tackle. 18 solos last season, 7 pass deflections in 12 games. So this is a kid who I think is going to make a pretty big impact in terms of what that cornerback spot is looking for. But we'll start with him, Aisha. Just from your scouting, you've watched his film. You've seen kind of what he brings to the table. What is he going to do in terms of maybe competing for a roster spot, a starting spot? Is that out of the question? What does he look like?
So I will say I'm not sure if this gentleman, if Eric Scott is going to come in and be fighting for a starting spot right away. Sure. But we found out real quick last year that you can't have enough corners, right? Yeah. Like we remember what it was like not having a 2-corner that could possess that spot and to really hold it down. So this guy plays with a lot of length. I don't feel like he has a lot of recovery speed, but he is good in press. Like I said, lengthy, very, very, very Dan Quinn-esque when you talk about what the build he wants to have. And then, Haley, I'm so glad that you mentioned the ball skills because I think that's very important to what they look for in DBs. Now, let's keep it a buck. Like, Cowboys lost some guys on special teams, and we know how important that part of the game is. So I do think that some of these gentlemen that were picked up, specifically Eric Scott, some of these gentlemen are going to have opportunities to be on special teams, show what they're capable of, and in camp, give you some good competition. Competition is so important to what Mike McCarthy mentions, and then when you talk about preseason and all that stuff, these gentlemen are going to get a chance to play. I think he has the capability to develop into a steady corner, outside boundary corner, that type of guy. So, yeah, I liked what I saw from him on tape, but I understand why they decided to take him and what he can do.
Let's dive into Jalen Brooks as well, another guy who I think from a drafting standpoint, again, I'm going to use the word question mark because it's the only thing that I can think of. Sure. And I don't mean to say that in an offensive way towards Jalen. He's a baller as well. Doing some digging, I was super impressed. I know he's bounced around different schools, but he finished at South Carolina. 22 starts through 24 games at South Carolina, 58 catches, 785 yards through those seasons. He had 2 touchdowns last year. So it's always interesting when you look at these guys because you're always curious, okay, what do the scouts see that we maybe don't see? Where are some areas that they think that this kid, Jalen Brooks, can slide in and be an impact player? And so it's always interesting to think about it from that level. But Jess, from your perspective, this wide receiver was a position that the Cowboys went and addressed in the offseason. So when you look at a Jalen Brooks, a 7th-round draft guy, he's not new to adversity, I guess you should say. What are your expectations for Jalen Brooks?
What I really like about Jalen Brooks is that he's seen different styles of offense here, and he's very aware of the kind of offenses that work with him, that mesh with him, and that don't, because he's talked about that, a lot. Kind of why he went from school to school was to find something that felt right for him, and very similar to what we talked about with Brandon Cooks being traded, of him being exposed to those different kind of offenses and how they're run and the different schemes. It just makes you a smarter player overall. So for me, my expectations for Jalen Brooks coming in is that it's a little bit easier for him to pick up the playbook, because how overwhelming it can be for a rookie to come in, from college to the NFL, to be able to retain all of that information. It's a lot for the guys. It really is. And so my expectation for him is that he's not going to have a difficult time, as difficult of a time being able to retain and pick up the play style, the playbook, especially because he's been exposed to so many different kind of offensive play styles already throughout his college career. So I think that is worth mentioning. I also really liked that, again, he came from a pro style offense. That's what we were just talking about with Schoon. And that's his nickname already. Like, he already has a nickname. I love this. But he comes from a pro style offense. So again, it's going to be an easier transition for those kind of guys that come in from that level of play to the NFL. So again, he's not, the shiny toy that everybody wanted with that pick. But again, don't count these guys out. They've worked very hard for where they are now. It's almost like there's people that do this for a living to find these players that are going to be a good fit for this team, right? I mean, what a concept. So again, just your friendly reminder that these guys are people too. So you don't have to agree with the draft pick, but let's be kind on social media, because just the things that some people say sometimes, it's cruel and for no reason.
They'd be all right. What thing about Jalen Brooks?
Like, what are you watching over here?
Yeah, listen. The draft show showed me that, hey, look at the highlights, girl. Look at the highlights.
I didn't know they were up. I was like, I thought you were watching the screen over here.
Yes, absolutely. But he speaking to him on the phone, he definitely was vocal about the fact that he has special teams capability.
Yeah.
Like, he believes that he can be a gunner, and he showed that when he was in college. But my favorite thing about him on tape is just how sure he is of his hands. That's an important thing soft hands. That's an important thing for a receiver, to me, is to trust their hands and to have strong hands and to be able to rip the ball out of the air. And he's one of those guys that does that. He also, too, is just a natural athlete. And when you see him in space, you see it. He looks like he's not easy to tackle. He looks like a guy that when he gets the ball in the move, he can definitely have yak ability. So I see what they see as far as developing him. And again, like I mentioned, preseason, practice squad, all that stuff is important to what's happening on this team, and we'll see if he can develop into a guy that can be on this roster. But their wide receiver room, just like we talked about with the other positions, is that competition there is going to be real and sturdy. So for him, having special teams ability could help him out as the training camp and stuff goes on.
I also like, too, that he has a history with Daniel Jones. And whenever you have a mentor like that Daniel Jones, we talk about him when we have to here on the podcast, but whenever you have a mentor like that who is already where he is at in his career, and he can kind of funnel down that information and help him get better, I like that. I like that connection. He worked with him, I believe, back in 2020, he mentioned, so I like that. I like that he's been getting that work in for the last couple of years, so don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on Jalen Brooks.
A lot of guys on this draft list to keep our eye on, but even more guys to keep our eye on that undrafted free agent list. Let's go ahead and take our first break here on Girls Talk Boys Talk. When we come back, we're going to tell you a couple names on this list that you should keep your eye out on as rookie minicamp unfolds this weekend. This is Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
If you have been thinking about weight loss surgery, My Bariatric Solutions has made it easier for you to schedule your initial consultation from the safety, comfort, and convenience of your own home. You'll meet one-on-one with the bariatric surgeon over a private and secure video call. You'll learn everything you need to know about the options available and which procedure is best for you. If you've been considering weight loss surgery and are ready to take the first step, call My Bariatric Solutions today at 844-326-6266. That's 844-326-6266, or go to mybariatricsolutions.com.
Dear past, present, and future football watchers, you know why we're here. The football season is back! Woo! And since that's too amazing to miss a single second's worth, Pepsi is officially giving you permission to always put football first. Like, maybe those in-laws are back in town. Well, better hope they're football fans, because your Sunday is completely booked. Long story short, crack open a Pepsi and don't let anything get between you and your football watching. With love, Pepsi, made for football watching. That's what I like.
Hi, I'm Danny McCray, Dallas Cowboys alumni player here with Smoothie King. And Smoothie King wants to ask you, what's that sound? That's the sound of you and everyone else absolutely loving new smoothie bowls from Smoothie King. And woo, me too. These smoothie bowls start with acai and pitaya and are handcrafted with fresh toppings like sliced bananas, sweet berries, crunchy Purely Elizabeth granola, and a savory peanut butter drizzle. New smoothie bowls, only at Smoothie King, the official smoothie of the Dallas Cowboys.
To our our second block here on Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk a little undrafted free agency, but first let's go to Jess.
Head to the Miller Lite House at AT&T Stadium for the Dallas Cowboys Tacos and Tunes Festival, presented by Miller Lite on Saturday, May 13th from 2 to 7 p.m. Enjoy a variety of tacos and food truck options while you sip on cold drinks and listen to live music. Admission and parking for the Dallas Cowboys Tacos and Tune Festival are free. You can visit AT&TStadium.com/tacos and tunes for more info, and we will see you there. Yum.
I know. I'm excited
Kinda
about
hungry
that.
now.
Tacos and tunes. All right. Let's talk undrafted free agents. And I love this conversation because these are, to me, some of my favorite people that I meet in the NFL, because as a former walk-on in college, I understand what it means to have to feel like you've had to earn your place, even though you've already earned it. So I love, love, love getting to know these undrafted free agents. But there's two very high on my list that I personally think could have been drafted, late 6th round guys, 7th round guys, that I think will quietly and not so quietly shock some people. I want to start with Hunter Lipke. I wanted to make sure I got his name right before I said it. Hunter Lipke, fullback out of North Dakota State. And I love that the narrative around North Dakota State has shifted so much from like, oh, they're the FCS powerhouse to like, no, they're cranking out some serious NFL talent. And so I love that that program is finally getting a little bit more steam. But interesting position. He's a fullback. He went to the Senior Bowl this year. He has accolades like out the window. I started to write them down, but there was too many of them, so we're not going to get into them. Just know he's a great guy. He finished 12th in voting as well for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award this year. So obviously he's a great guy off the field as well. It's something that Cowboys front office really enjoys. But as we sit here and watch his tape, guys, this is a monster. Yeah. He's a force. Yes. I think he brings physicality. I think he brings a super specific skill set to a roster that hasn't really utilized a fullback maybe as they could have. Sure. So I think that this is going to be yet another weapon in the creative arsenal that this offense is trying to shift towards. Yeah. But this is definitely a guy I think we should keep our eye on.
I also like his short yardage ability, especially when you're entering your post-Zeke era with the Cowboys, because you need that. Like, I understand that was Zeke's go-to area for the last few seasons, right? So without that kind of puts you in a pickle if you don't have the right guy to do that. And so he has that yak ability, which we always like to talk about on the podcast because it's so important. He has the cut moves, and he's not a traditional kind of fullback, but he's so versatile. And again, we're sticking with that theme of versatile. I was watching his tape last night, and I was like, dang, with everything he was doing, because he's just, he's a powerhouse. He's powerhouse. That is the one word I would describe Hunter Lipke with. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And add that.
Let me ask you this, Aisha, from a fullback standpoint, can you kind of just explain maybe the importance of being able to utilize a fullback, and maybe what that role looks like, and how Hunter could maybe fill that role?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the fullback's position it's almost like having an extra lineman out there. We saw Kellen use McGovern as a fullback, but when you have a guy that's more athletic like this gentleman that can get upfield and to get to the second level and put a body on people, it's definitely should open up the run game. But what he's going to do is lead block, and the idea of him lead blocking and there being like a Deuce Vaughn behind him. And then we talk about this running back room. You mentioned it, Jess. Hunter Lipke being signed really, to me, told me that Ezekiel Elliott's time here was probably done because of the goal line ability, which I think is so important when you look at the rest of the running back room that isn't super powerhouse, running the ball. But I don't want to shortchange Hunter Lipke. Like, this dude's a running back. Yeah. He has fullback ability, but he is a running back. And so, to me, I think that type of versatility is going to make it difficult for defenses, because the same way that we talk about the tight ends, like, is this guy blocking right now, or is he going to slip right here? And I think this is so important, having guys like him, like a Deuce Vaughn, that can slip in the backfield and be the last option for Dak. So many times last year we saw there were so many guys downfield and no one in that intermediate spot to help Dak out. And this guy is a guy that can be there, that can make something out of nothing when your quarterback needs it. So I do think as a fullback, also too, Mike McCarthy has a reputation of using a fullback. He has a reputation. Yeah.
Big.
Is that a song? He has a reputation of using a fullback in the run game. So I really feel like this also has given us an idea of what they're maybe trying to gear more towards. And that's you're going to suffer.
That's scary.
Right? You're going to suffer.
Yeah.
We're going to run the ball down your throat, and we might pass the ball outside, and you're going to have to come up and tackle. So from those two, the flexibility that he has as a fullback and a running back, I think are very unique in a sense for this offense.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I'm excited to get him in the building. I'm excited to see, kind of where his designation roles, like who are his boys in the locker room going to be, like who's he going to gravitate towards. That's kind of stuff that I get excited for.
And he also has work as a tight end too. So it's like I don't know. I don't know what his personality's like, but if you have another guy in that tight end room, I mean, that tight end room is just stacked already, and they're so fun to be around.
Yeah, they
really are. So, I'm like you said, just powerhouse.
Yeah.
Period.
Super excited for a guy on the opposite side of the ball, though, that, again, I really think I was surprised when he wasn't drafted. The Cowboys have a type when it comes to HBCUs. It's no secret that they like the Rattlers a little bit. Couple of big-name guys that have come from FAMU, Nate Newton, Bob Hayes, just to name a couple. So obviously they are another program I think that's on the rise in terms of cranking out NFL caliber talent. And that starts with Isaiah Land, defensive end out of Florida A&M University. He's listed as a linebacker on the Florida A&M website, which again I think falls into that similar category as someone like DeMarvion Overshone, who's going to be able to have a little bit of position flex. But this kid's a stud, an All-American at the FCS level, 23 tackles, 7 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 2 pass deflections in 2022. He was a Buck Buchanan finalist. And my favorite underrated thing about this kid, guys, he spent all 5 of his years at Florida A&M. And I know that is such a small thing, but with the way the transfer portal and NIL money has been moving, to me, this is a guy who doesn't give up. This is a guy who recognized his ability, wanted to stick with it, through with the Rattlers, HBU, putting all that on the map. And I really think that aspect of it is super special. So kudos to him for being there for 4 years. But aside from that, very similar to Hunter, this is a kid who's a baller and I think has an opportunity to make it on the 53.
Yeah, man. It's so crazy because we talked about in the draft show that DN, we feel so secure in DN right now. But next year, I mean, Dorrance Armstrong's on the last year of his deal, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, you have Tank, Sam Williams is coming along, but that position is not secure, right? And so seeing Isaiah Land, I told you I audibly yelled upstairs when I got excited. But the commitment to the team and staying there is something I thought was dope. But this guy is just, when I say just a natural pass rusher, there's some guys you watch, you just like, man, like, he looks the part, and the bend is there, the speed is there, the explosiveness, and he has that relentlessness to him as far as pursuit. I know a lot of people are saying that the Cowboys maybe are looking at moving him to linebacker and seeing what he can do as an outside linebacker just because of his size. He's not a super big guy. People are looking for him to put on a little bit more weight, but I like his game, and I like the chip that he plays with on his shoulder. Like, it's very evident that he understands his ability and what he can be. And with this coaching staff, we've seen guys develop into things that maybe you didn't think they could be. And so I think he's going to contest. He's going to flash in preseason. People are going to be asking, who is this guy? And I honestly had a 6th round grade on him, a high 6th round grade on him. So there were plenty of people that were surprised that he didn't go drafted, as for a lot of HBCU players.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like I said, I was surprised. I was surprised that there was only one guy from the HBCU ranks that was drafted. Yes. I think that kind of there's obviously work to be done in that avenue, but the best part about the NFL draft is that a lot of these really cool stories come out of these undrafted free agents. And there's a lot of guys from that HBCU rank. I wrote down a list just of guys who the Cowboys have had. Everson Walls, who's very much in the building still, went to Grambling. Timmy Newsome went to Winston-Salem. Hollywood Henderson went to Langston. And, of course, Ed Too-Tall Jones out of Tennessee State. So a lot of guys who were impact guys on this in this Cowboys history have come from HBCU. So I am excited to not only continue to give that football a platform because it deserves it, but also too just to see and continue to prove that the guys that come from these schools, you don't have to come from the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever it is to make an impact on the football field.
Marquise Bell, too. I totally forgot Marquise Bell is on this roster right now, and he's a guy that we are possibly looking to see, take a step this year also, too. Another FAMU guy. So Cowboys definitely have their places where they look, or they're looking.
It's a good set.
We're blue and silver, but they also bleed orange and green, ladies.
I appreciate it. Wait, okay.
Love that. I love that.
I didn't know. I had to catch on.
Are there any other guys? I know that the list is kind of fluid, but any other guys on that undrafted list that could be maybe sleepers, again, just contend for a roster spot? Maybe you could see them on the practice squad being impact players. I know there's a lot, so we don't have time to get into all of them, but anybody else that stands out?
Darrell Johnson out of Liberty, if I'm not mistaken, DN, dude, again, super, super, super productive, and Will McClay uses that word, productivity, and how important that is to those to them when they're looking at players. But it's hard to deny what you see from him on film and his ability to get to the quarterback from that DN position. TJ Bass, the guard out of Oregon. We talk about left guard, and I know that was a big worry for us, big worry for me, and he's another gentleman that I think is someone that to keep an eye on through those times in that competition, because left guard, that depth there is kind of iffy. We could see him possibly be a guy that makes the practice squad or the roster in itself as a depth piece. So, there's a couple gentlemen that I think are guys to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Earl Bostic Jr. because, wow. This stat was everywhere, but Next Gen Stats said that he had the 8th best athletic score among offensive tackles at the Combine. He's good with footwork and pass pro. And his lateral quickness was something that I noticed pretty quickly. I was like, oh, dang, that's cool. And then somebody else, Miles Brooks, cornerback there. I think because, again, we can't have too stacked of a cornerback room, you can't count any of them out, really. He plays really good in press. He's quicker than I thought he would be watching it. And then, of course, what I'm interested in seeing is, again, never count anybody out just because they're an undrafted free agent, but wide receiver David Durden, I think, is somebody else to keep in mind because he's also a special teams contributor. And that is going to be interesting. And I thought the most interesting story to come out of him was that he's a former Red Sox prospect. So converted there. I think that's pretty cool. He's a pretty speedy slot receiver. So I think there's so much competition right now for special teams that could end up making or breaking a lot of guys, whether they make this roster or not. So those are a couple names that just I saw off the bat.
Former tight end, too.
Yeah.
Former tight end.
Versatile.
You can see that in his athleticism.
Yeah.
I think he could definitely work on, playing with power, but the footwork and stuff is there. Jalen Marino, also, too, from Fresno State, is getting a lot of conversation, a lot of talk, and what he can do as a receiver, possibly down the depth chart. Are you guys... are you guys worried about Simi Fehoko and what his position might be?
I was so locked in on
I was worried about what?
Eyes are.
I was like, are you okay?
No, because
I'm not worried about Simi. Here's what I think. I think Simi was in a very similar boat as what Jalen Tolbert was last year. I just don't think he got as much pub about it because he did have a couple of injuries that kind of kept him out, and I think it was maybe easier for the front office and the coaching staff just to say, give him the year, let him heal up, let him, and we'll attack it next year. So I don't think we should be worried about Simi. I think if there's not substantial growth in terms of our expectations of, what are we getting out of him and what are we actually getting out of him. So I think training camp will be an interesting spot for Simi to reestablish himself on this roster for sure.
I like that. Reestablish.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I just think I try not to be disrespectful to these guys because to your point, they are people. So we try to approach this with a little bit of compassion, but realistically, I think a lot of people forgot about Simi last year because he just was never super available. You know, he had an okay preseason and picked up some injuries, and then they kind of just kept him on the injury list all season. And again, I think from a roster standpoint, that really helped out, you know, in terms of having space available for the positions that they really needed. So I think this training camp will be an interesting one for Simi, and a perfect transition into our second break in our final block here on Girls Talk Boys Talk. We are going to get into some of the current guys on the roster, what they've been doing this offseason, and if it will make a difference come August. This is Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that sixth ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Dear past, present, and future football watchers, you know why we're here. The football season is back! Woo! And since that's too amazing to miss a single second's worth, Pepsi is officially giving you permission to always put football first. Like, maybe those in-laws are back in town. Well, better hope they're football fans because your Sunday is completely booked. Long story short, crack open a Pepsi and don't let anything get between you and your football watching. With love, Pepsi, made for football watching. That's what I like.
If you have been thinking about weight loss surgery, My Bariatric Solutions has made it easier for you to schedule your initial consultation from the safety, comfort, and convenience of your own home. You'll meet one-on-one with the bariatric surgeon over a private and secure video call. You'll learn everything you need to know about the options available and which procedure is best for you. If you've been considering weight loss surgery and are ready to take the first step, call My Bariatric Solutions today at 844-326-6266. That's 844-326-6266, or go to mybariatricsolutions.com.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Blockchain.com is one of the most trusted ways to buy, sell, and trade crypto. Whether you're always on the go or stay closer to home, Blockchain.com is just a few taps away. Put the power of crypto in your pocket, so no matter where you are, you can trade on your terms and build a crypto portfolio to fit your life. For crypto pros, rookies, and anyone in between, Blockchain.com makes it easy to own a piece of the future. Blockchain.com, trusted by millions, trusted by America's team.
Few minutes here on Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go over to Jess.
Register now for the 2023 Dallas Cowboys Youth Camps presented by Invisalign. Athletes ages 6 to 16 are invited to learn from the best this summer at AT&T Stadium or the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco. Cowboy football camps are led by former NFL players, and dance camps are taught by the current Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Save $25 when you sign up for camp by May 12th. Visit dallascowboys.com/camps. Go sign up.
So obviously the rookies, we will get our first look at them this weekend when they head to rookie mini camp. But some of these guys have already been hard at work since the season pretty much ended, as well as voluntary practices happening throughout the last couple of weeks out here at the Ford Center at the Star. But there's a couple of guys, in my opinion, that have really stood out in terms of off-season work and what they've been doing for both themselves and the rest of the team. I want to start with Micah because we teased it a little bit last week but didn't really get to dive into it. Micah Parsons has declared that he is going to play defensive end. He doesn't want to play linebacker anymore.
I like
he wants to be a defensive end. He's training to be a defensive end. I've seen all kinds of numbers floating around from him on Twitter about how much weight he wants to put on and where he's at. We know he's not here for voluntary OTAs. He's down training in Austin again to focus on bulking up on weight. Good news, bad news for the Cowboys defensive line.
What? I think it's good news. I think it's good news. I don't think if I listen to him correctly, he's not completely, Xing out linebacker, just being able to rush from there and all that. But the idea of him putting on more weight at DN and kind of preparing his body and the commitment that he's taking is, I have not gotten to see that from a player at this point in my career, just seeing like how he builds up that tolerance. So this is the idea of Micah getting better or bigger, or
scary.
Yeah, because even last year with how much teams tried to take him out the game, and you saw it affect him later in the season, when he needed to make a play, he still was able to do that. And so to think that he's like callousing himself to be able to deal with the brutality of it through the year, I'm like, there's a different feel to Micah that, as far as trying to get better, that I don't know if I've seen before, where he's like, okay, he's constantly trying to be better, and that's just, it's crazy to me. Like, calm down. It's like, calm down. But it's like, nah, don't calm down, because we want you to be better. But anyway, yeah, I think what we're seeing from him, the commitment we're seeing from him to get his body right, is important to this team, because there were times that teams tried to take him out the game, and you saw that wear and tear later in the season.
Yeah. And I like that he, there are different numbers floating around of how much weight exactly, but it was funny. He tweeted out, he's like, people here bulking up and they think I'm going to gain all this weight. No, I'm only going for like 5 pounds here, in a healthy way. And I like that he emphasized that in a very healthy way. And yeah, just seeing the workout videos that have come out so far. I don't know if you guys have seen them, but if you haven't, go check them out on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's scary, because you see a healthy Micah Parsons again, which you didn't see the tail end of the season. You knew he was hurting, but he was still putting it all out on the line. So to see him healthy and be able to move quickly like that again, I'm excited. I don't think anything you can do with Micah is the wrong answer, to be honest.
I agree. CeeDee Lamb, another guy who has been not so quietly working. We've seen him in South Florida. I know for a minute he was training with Tua Tagovailoa's quarterback coach, out there running with Jerry Jeudy and a lot of the South Florida guys. So not only a different climate that he's training through, but also just a different group of guys, maybe getting a fresh perspective. But he's also kind of been out and about in terms from a social standpoint, which I always think is cool. It's so fun to see the metamorphosis sometimes of these players as they go from rookies who they think they're hot stuff, but they don't know how to act like they're hot stuff. And then that, like I said, just that metamorphosis into kind of these stud guys, because they are studs. So it's been cool to see his development as both a player and a person in the offseason. And then, of course, Dak Prescott has been so active, not only with himself and getting better, but just working with the team. And I think it's going to bode well from a chemistry standpoint. When they get to training camp, they'll at least have that comfortability. And I would imagine, too, he's instilled a little bit of that competitive fire in them, too. If you're out there, it's one thing, and again, I mean this respectfully, but when you're out there running routes with maybe a drafted quarterback or the backup quarterback, it's one thing to get the reps in, but to do this with your starting quarterback and to kind of feel that excitement of this could be me if I keep working my butt off. I think that's really cool, too.
What I'm interested to see, too, and you're seeing a little shimmer of it now, is the dynamic between CeeDee and Dak and how that's growing, especially now with Zeke not in the building, because you're missing Dak's go-to guy that's been his go-to since day one. And now without that dynamic here, CeeDee kind of becomes that guy for Dak. And so I think what you're going to see is, you're seeing that already. They were in Florida together. They've been training a lot of this offseason together, but you're also going to see it with the chemistry, like you mentioned, Haley, on the field, of Dak truly having that trust wholeheartedly that CeeDee is my go-to guy. And so I'm really excited to continue to see CeeDee transform, because this is his first season that we see him walking into with that mindset of, I am wide receiver 1. This is my spot. I belong here. As compared to last year, you saw the transformation kind of happening in real time. You're seeing a new CeeDee walking in day one, ready to believe that position is his, own it, and get ready to go. And him and Dak and that chemistry is just going to, I think it's really going to grow, and it's going to be really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, the Dak yard is unique, and the fact that those guys take that time. We've seen Ferg out there, we've seen Henny out there, you've seen Jalen Tolbert, who we're looking to make the next jump. Obviously, during the offseason, we know that the NFL doesn't allow those together workouts, and for these guys to take the initiative to do that, I think is important, like you said, to team chemistry. But we also have to remember that there's a new offense to some degree being installed. So those gentlemen probably are refining and going through some of these little different changes that are going to be happening. We'll be able to see that in camp pretty soon. But I think that is a big part of why they're working as well, is that so once they get to camp, it's not all new stuff that they're trying to learn. I'm sure they're trying to implement some of what they're being taught by Schottenheimer and McCarthy into some of what they're doing outside this building.
Yeah. I think it's exciting. I think it makes me feel excited because that means that OTAs are coming up next, and then it'll be training camp.
It's nuts, y'all.
We'll be doing
what
it all
off
over
season?
Again.
It went by
what
so
off
fast.
season?
Oh, so much to talk about always, but that is all we are going to talk about today on Girls Talk, Boys Talk. But good news for you guys, we're going to do this all again next week.
Yay.
Back on our regularly scheduled time on Thursday, but that'll do it. We will have your rookie reports coming out this week, and we will talk all about it next week on Girls Talk, Boys Talk.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!